Hey, real quick, I just wanted to be known that Pittsburgh has just suffered through tornado-like storms, and over 200,000 people are without power and have lost a ton of food, including myself. So down at the bottom, I will be leaving some links to some donations where you will be able to help out if you choose to do so. Now back to the garden. Oh, hello. Welcome back to Pittsburgh Home Garden. It is the top of May, which means it's time to get some summer classics in the ground. Finally, I'm actually, really betting on the nights staying above the 50 degree. I'm expecting 1 or 2 nights where we'll dip down into a random low 40s because that's how Mother Nature seems to work around here. She always gives you one nice cold shoulder night just to kill off your plants. I'm taking a bet. I actually preheated the original big bed just for this reason because I wanted to get my tomatoes in nice and early this year. I really think the random cold snap won't kill off the plants if I put some plastic over them for that specific night or two because they'll still soak up the 60, 70 degree heat during the day. So as long as the top leaves don't die, I think I'll be fine. At least I hope so. So let's go ahead and talk about the actual stars of the show. Let's get the planting with the good old peppers and tomatoes. Here we are in the brand new design of the big bed. As you can see, I have 2 beautiful tall trellises here, both measuring roughly about 10 feet long. So now I have 10-foot rows that I can plant all of my tomatoes and cucumbers. Also, the advantage of having 2 tall trellises is actually the placement. So during the morning, all my plants over here where I plan on putting some okra, some peppers, a couple, summer heat-loving crops because this bed receives the most amount of actual afternoon sun. The benefit of having the trellises in the back is actually it's going to provide a nice little bit of morning shade. There are times in the summer where days are just like extremely hot. Last year we had a week in the 90s, which is fairly uncommon around here, and a lot of plants just really stress from having sun beating on them the entire day. So with having the trellises right here, I'm actually taking advantage of my morning sun blocking out what's over here, and then the afternoon sun hitting directly here, mainly cooling off over here because I start to see a little bit of the shade. So it's super exciting to just have like new trellises set up, especially because I have a ton of varieties of tomatoes just to lay down this baby. Okay, so now the actual strategy of how to plant the tomatoes is very important because I have a lot of different types in here. I have a mix of Cherokee tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, medium-sized tomatoes, and the important thing about all of that is the growth rate. I know that my bigger toms take a bit more time, and because they do take that time, they actually tend to grow a bit larger, as in their vines actually get a bit taller than some of my medium tomatoes because those get more focused on like producing the actual cherries. So I am going to start with my big toms in the back, and this is a homegrown seed that I have had for 3-4 years because my first successful harvest, I was just very excited about saving the seeds. And these toms are my big beef toms, the beefsteak ones. All right, next on the list, I think I'm gonna go with my Oxheart Toms, which are much like your beefsteak tomatoes as far as size. They are very big, but they actually have like a nice little pinkish flesh, and they kind of resemble what we think hearts like to look like. Oxheart is actually one of the varieties that I first grew way before I even moved back to Pittsburgh. So I'm excited to see an old friend again. Okay, so after actually looking around it here, I think I'm gonna go with my Napoleon tomato, or Napoleon. I hope that's how you pronounce it. These tomatoes are actually known for their like very thick skins, so they're very good for like pasting and sauces. So I know that I actually want a lot of these tomatoes because a big focus for me is one, redemption. Last year the animals tore up my tomato plants, gave them tons of disease, and that's the total reason why I've switched the beds for them. And two is I want to be able to still have homemade sauces during the wintertime. I tend to run out right after the new year, which leaves me stranded, for like 4 or 5 months without my homemade sauce. So this year, I'm certainly going to put a big focus on tomatoes like the Napoleon. All right, the big toms are in, and we are going to kick off the second row actually with my San Marzanos. Now, of course, these are the classic pasting and saucing tomato. They are very sought after. The real ones in the stores cost up to 2 times more than your regular old tomatoes. These are highly sought after, and last year I got zero. Not necessarily zero, but goddamn, I was supposed to have so much more than what I actually got, and it's because of the disease that came from all these little nibbling creatures and their dirty ass mouths. So this year I am, of course, putting a big focus on my saucing tomatoes, and the San Marzano is the most classic of them all. All right, so we are going to close out the tomato planting with all of my cherries, actually. I have some orange currants, which I have never grown, but I hear are very tasty, a very similar taste to the sun golds. So looking forward to that, of course. I have some jelly bean cherry toms, which are these very candy looking like toms. I'm really growing them for the aesthetic, but I imagine the taste would be worth it as well. And I have my yellow cherry tom here, which I have grown before. Beautiful tomatoes. They actually make the yard pop so much because they're so vibrant with their color. I also would like to point out that it may not look like I have a lot of cherry tomatoes here, because I actually don't. And it's kind of on purpose. I'm really expecting to have all of those suckers that grow off. That is why I actually decided to start these pretty early, because within, I don't know, a month and a half, I'm going to be able to duplicate, maybe triplicate these good old plants, because cherry tomatoes specifically put out so many suckers. It's something that you really got to stay up on. And if you subscribe to the channel, I'll show you how to do that. And to close out this tray of little baby seedlings, I actually have some generic peppers here. My labeling still isn't the best sometimes, especially when I'm in a rush. And I am also a man who enjoys surprises. So here I just have 2 trays of peppers. I don't know. So I guess we will see together what they are, but I'm going to go ahead and plant them in the top row of this nice other section of the bed where the trellises aren't covering, because I have such a big fucking bed that I love. So yeah, I'm gonna plant a whole row of peppers and we'll see what they are. Now, for anybody who is a longtime subscriber, first of all, yo, what's going on? I hope you're doing well. You might be asking yourself, why didn't I plant out my, overwintered peppers? I think they're still alive. I'm actually seeing the wood turn this nice tan color, which I believe signals new growth. As I've read, you're going to go through a period where you think they're dead, but then you'll start seeing some leaves. And one of the reasons why I haven't put them out in the yard yet is strictly because I actually haven't hardened them off yet. These have been inside underneath a grow light, more or less. They've been getting water, but they've been getting real pampered, and outside has been very turbulent, not even including the most recent storms. So I'm actually going to save these for the next round of planting, because by then they would be hardened off, and hopefully I start to see little green matter to signal that, life is still with them. All right, so next up on the list, we are actually going to go with some classic brassicas, because these babies are so ready to be in the ground. Before we get to the actual planting of the brassicas, I would like to make mention of the brassica bed, a bed that I'm going to call Big Bertha, because it is going to house all of my wonderful greens. Everything that can be attacked by birds is now protected, because I have actually surrounded this entire baby with bird netting from the top down and all of the sides, totally protected by the bird netting, because I really didn't want to even think about segmenting my rows with the eventual bird netting that I would need. So why not just do the entire bed? The bird netting is fairly cheap. I'll leave an Amazon link below, but it actually like works pretty well. There are a few gaps between the two sets that I do need to clean up. But other than that, I haven't seen any birds in the bed. I am going to clean up the actual gaps because birds will find a way. But if you have a large bed and a large space where you want to put your greens for the next summer, fall, into the winter, if you possibly can, maybe just think about covering the entire thing. It's a lot easier than what people think. Okay, so here in Big Bertha, things have actually been doing pretty well. The planting that I did last month has actually successfully taken. So all of my kale, my collard greens, my lettuce, all of that is doing very well in the bed. A couple mornings I did come out and see the birds munching on the lettuce, so that is why I immediately put the net up, of course. But besides, that little bit of pressure, things are growing very well. And I'm gonna go ahead and put in my good old bok choy up here at the top of the bed. This side of the bed receives more sun than the lower half, so I am doing a bit of a strategic planting. And bok choy, if you haven't grown it, please consider it. It's a very easy grow. It is delicious, and you can actually harvest when it's very young, because the younger ones seem to be just a little bit more tender than the older, more grown plants. But at any point in the life cycle, bok choy is delicious. Steamed, seared, put on top as like a top. Oh my goodness, it's just so good. Go ahead, do yourself a favor and get some bok choy in. All right, so along this third bed, right next to my wonderful kale that is growing on, I am actually going to put some of my giant Swiss chard. I've actually never grown the giant variety, but my Swiss chard seems to get pretty big nonetheless. So I'm really interested to see how much bigger this giant variety actually gets compared to, your regular Swiss chard. Okay, so I'm thinking next up on the list, we go ahead and rock with some flowers that I need to strategically place along the yards for a couple different reasons. So as far as the first flower on the list, I'm actually going to be planting my centranella. This is a plant that is a natural repellent for mosquitoes. And I have this line of grow bags here because it is actually outlining the space where I like hang out, my little in-ground pit where me and company drink and have a good old time. So I'm thinking along on the border, if I just fill all of these 5-10 gallon grow bags up with the centranella, I should have a nice, beautiful perimeter of mosquito-free night and a beautiful flower to just sit and look at. So next up on the flower list is actually my morning glories. I actually love morning glories so much, and come to find out that actually might be a whole childhood thing for me. Apparently my great grandmother, the one who I spoke about in previous videos, also loved morning glories, and she used to purposely plant them along her gate line. So it might be like a deep-seated memory I have of like waking up in the morning, seeing all these wonderful vining flowers and then watching them close up back in the evening. So I actually want to take advantage of like the full vining potential of the wonderful morning glories. So I'm going to put them along the bed, so when they start to actually sprawl out, I'll be able to trellis them along this little chicken wire gate that I have. That way, during the summertime, I can come out here in the mornings and see this entire bed, hopefully surrounded by morning glories and, of course, beautiful greens inside. Okay, so it is actually starting to rain again out here, but that's not the biggest issue because I have a surprise to show you. Here we are inside the greenhouse next to my brand new in-ground bed. I am so excited about this bed. For the last 2 years, there has been a, semi-standing bed here with a lot of grow bags inside. I had this whole idea that, now thinking back on it, was kind of stupid. Why didn't I just have an in-ground protected bed inside the greenhouse. I can start so many things here. I plan on putting so many melons here because number one, they're protected, and number two, it's in ground. So all the benefits of outside, but inside. So because it is raining outside, I figure why not go ahead and use this opportunity to put in my first official plantings of the actual bed. So here I have some early sown cucumbers. Here I actually have a couple different bush beans, and I have a pole bean right here. I have so many trays inside filled with beans that are going to be so ready for the greenhouse in general. But I think because these are already hardened off, these are going to do perfect inside my brand new 12-foot in-ground bed. Okay, we are back after getting rained out yesterday. Today actually started with a beautiful foggy morning here in good old Appalachia, beautiful Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But let's get back to the planting, and we are going to start with these extra special root vegetables. So we are here at the yay old potato patch, where things are actually growing on pretty well. I am starting to see the tops of my potatoes that I planted last month, which means that they are starting to put out energy. So they're at least starting to begin to make the tubers, which I eventually will be digging up and eating. And as you can also see, is there's tons of what looks to be weeds over here, but they're actually volunteer borage. Borage is one of those amazing looking flowers that almost looks like unreal once it's in bloom. It's this very like neon pink and purple type of flower that makes wonderful teas. I ended up growing a good amount of it last year, kind of learning how to use it. So this year I actually will be able to talk about it. So all of these like little flowers are again volunteers around the yard. So when talking about these potatoes that I called extra special, they are special because they are actually bred to be seed potatoes. All the other potatoes that are doing well and growing on right now in the patch are actually just store-bought potatoes that kind of went long in my fridge. And these are different because they don't have any type of sprays. They weren't meant to be sold in grocery stores. So they are totally organic seed potatoes. And I'm putting them over here because I'm really interested to see the differences in the yields between the store-bought and, the organic potatoes. So they're going to sit right alongside the borage and the potatoes. And at the end of the season, we'll be able to properly compare the differences between, seed and stores. All right, back at the table, and up next, we are going to actually put some herbs in the yard. So we are here in another year of a beautiful, beautiful mint patch. This thing just like won't quit. Year after year, it keeps producing. It keeps running, and I'm worried that it's going to take over this entire space if I don't get other herbs in here, because it seems to be just like a safe spot for all of them. They're not in the way of any of the beds, of course, and no animals seem to really bother them. So right here in front of my back door is actually really perfect for herbs because I could just run out in the middle of the night, because I cook at 10:30 at night. So I could just run out, turn the light on, take a couple snips of some wonderful stuff. So we are actually going to plant in a nice little bit of dill and marjoram. I think it's marjoram. I've never really grown any marjoram or dill for that matter, but I've certainly used them for different spices. I really love it on my meat and on my fish. So I'm hoping to get a nice little patch that can grow on and take up a bit of this space down here, since that mint ain't going nowhere. All right, so the last herb on the list is actually my globe basil. It is a basil that tends to bush out instead of going straight up like more traditional basils. This one is more like a half circle. So I think it would be aesthetically pleasing and very cool to have a line of them, almost like those bushes that you see in public spaces. I'm gonna use them more like shrubbery, I guess. And I think right here next to my wonderful hyssop, which I forgot to mention, I think right next to the hyssop will be a perfect place for this because it receives full sun and I won't have to worry too much about watering because it is at the bottom of this mint hill slope. And last but not least, I have my wonderful sunflowers. Anybody who has been a subscriber of the channel knows that I am a man of tall kale and very, very tall sunflowers. And when thinking about planting these, I always tend to keep that height in mind. It's always about where I want the eye line to stop. So those are going to be strategically planted throughout the yard, along with the castor beans, which are actually a bit poisonous. So if you have kids or pets that run around your yard, maybe they're not the best thing for you. I don't know if you could hear, but it is actually starting to rain again. It's so rainy in the Berg, and I am tired of this video being delayed by storms. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these in the yard a bit later, and I'm gonna end the video there. I wanna thank you for watching. As always, thank you to my Patreon member, Miss Rachel Reese. You are a lovely, lovely person. Thank you. And for anybody interested in donating to any relief funds that I have left in the bottom, the links will be below this video. If you're interested in buying a coloring book, you could check that out, or subscribing to my Patreon if you want to get into a bit of some nerdy science about gardening. But that's going to do it for me. So until next time, I'll be here gardening.